Hey, I'm Mel, and in 2017, someone asked me if I'd heard about this Bitcoin. And I said, hey, I think I've got some of that. So I went looking for this Bitcoin. And when I found the account, I opened it, and the $100 that I spent was worth $4,700. And I said, what is this? What is it doing? What is it going to do next? And how am I going to find out more? I had to know everything. And finding the right person to listen to is a superpower of mine. It takes some time, but I will find the smartest person to help me learn about whatever it is I want to learn. So I found that Bitcoin Twitter was a, a hub for Bitcoin information. And after a lot of morons, I somehow found Tone Vays Twitter and then his YouTube channel. I didn't know what he was talking about. I didn't always know what he was saying or what he meant. And I had no background in finance. I didn't know anything about money, uh, charts, but I knew that his views were his own. I knew that he could not be bought. I knew that he was telling the truth to the best of his ability, and I could always verify what he said. So I was there every day. I was constantly learning until one day I suddenly started to know what he was talking about. I understood his charts. And I knew once again that in now these 7 years, I still believe him and his views are his own and that he knows this world and he has been a mentor of mine. And what he doesn't know, and most of you don't know, is that in 2008, when the bottom fell out of Detroit, especially, my family and I lost everything. My husband lost his job. I lost my shop. And we moved to Chicago and we started over with nothing, absolutely nothing. And I started a new business. I found Bitcoin. My kids were going to great schools. And then I found Tone. And my life profoundly changed. Because of him, I'm standing here today. I'm a very different person than I was in 2017. And I feel a great deal of gratitude for myself and my family. And we were able to pick up from nothing and start again and move forward. And I attribute a lot of this to Tone Vays. So that is what I have to say. And introducing Tone Vays.
Whoa, that was an awesome intro. Thank you so much, Mel. Mel was also helping me organize Unconfiscatable this past year, and they did a great job. Conference went awesome. How many of you were there in Las Vegas? All right, cool. Hopefully, I'll see many of you back. We are bringing the event back in September of this year. It's going to be a little bit smaller, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So come and join us, especially if you play poker. All right, Gary, thank you so much for inviting me back to Bitblockboom. I think this is like my 4th or 5th time speaking here. I did skip a year, and I think I'm skipping next year. I don't think you're allowed to speak 3 times in a row. And I always try to bring new and different presentations every time I do speak at a Bitblockboom, and this time is no different. How many of you saw a presentation last year about like the history of Bitcoin and more of a macro analysis? This time we are going to do more charts. It's great because I got to watch Parker and Stefan Lavera talk about the money, talk more about the macro picture. And now we're going to dive into the charts. I don't know if anyone else will be doing something similar to that. Okay. Why does the clicker always work over there, but not here? There we go. Okay, we're back. And so let's talk about cycles. I'm not going to do any technical analysis charts. These are going to be more I guess, on-chain analysis charts. Not something I do on my channel, so it's always great to do something different. I don't think I need to really introduce myself. I think a lot of people are familiar with my YouTube channel and the events that I organize. And this chart, we're going to come back to this chart at the end. This chart is more of a time analysis chart. When am I expecting this current bull run to end? And we are in the bull run. I think that is undeniable now. I personally believe the bull run started when the price broke out above 20,000. That would have been approximately 1 year ago. And now we've just broken all-time high. The halving is next week. And here is the history of all prior cycles, assuming we start at the same point, which is next week's halving. And you can see how the red line, which is the very, very first cycle, from the moment Bitcoin got its first price of about 10 cents a Bitcoin. And when did it top out? Well, it tends to top out from approximately 1 year after the halving till about 8 months later. And we see that all prior tops took place in that 7 to 9 month window. So that's what I'll be looking at for a potential market top in that time window. So having said that, that's plenty of time. That takes us into 2025. So hopefully the bull market will continue into 2025. All right, why am I? Okay, here we go. All right. So what are some of the most important drivers of Bitcoin right now in terms of price? Okay, because look, everyone is going to stand on stage and say price doesn't matter. It matters. Okay, it also really matters to me as well because I did build a channel around trying to talk about the price. So one of the biggest drivers of the Bitcoin price back in 2021, when we were hitting the height of the market, was actually the accumulation of Bitcoin in what today are the Bitcoin ETFs. But at the time, it was only GBTC. The amount of GBTC that Grayscale was purchasing was double the mined supply of Bitcoin, and they were able to accumulate 600,000 Bitcoin. But the bulk of that accumulation took place in 2020, and it ended right around the all-time high in 2021 when we hit 65,000. That high was slightly broken later that year, but this was the bulk of the run-up. And something similar is happening again right now. So again, sorry guys. No, there we go. So weird. And so a similar thing is happening right now with the ETFs. At the moment, what we see is massive influx of Bitcoin into the ETFs, and especially the BlackRock ETF and Fidelity ETF. But there's a mass exodus out of Grayscale that's mostly due to fees. I've discussed this at length on my YouTube channel. I'm not going to get into it here, but we can see from the numbers that in January of this year, which was a shortened month because the ETFs launched in the middle of the month, there was a 37,000 Bitcoin accumulation. So that's an additional 37,000 Bitcoin that went into cold storage to back the ETFs. In February, it was 111,000 additional Bitcoin. And in March, it was an additional 67,000 Bitcoin. So we've seen massive run-ups in Bitcoin January, February, March, which makes sense. The last couple of weeks here in April, the massive influx of new Bitcoin has slowed down. There was a week in March where it was negative. And right now, so far this week, I don't have the Friday's data yet. A lot of that data is going to come out on Monday. So this is a break-even week, and last week only saw a 7,000 Bitcoin inflow. But right now, on a weekly basis, 6,000 new Bitcoin gets mined. And next week, that's going to get cut in half. So the moment this demand picks up in the ETFs, I'm certainly expecting a lot more price increases off of that. Hey, sorry. Where am I supposed to point this to? Sorry, guys. I had no problem working back there, but like once you're on stage, everything changes. Are you sure? Dude, it's like 40 slides. I'm about to go really fast. Can we switch clickers? I don't know why it wasn't working. Yeah, no, this would be a lot better. Okay, here we go. So what's another big driver before we get into the actual technical charts? Just like ETFs are accumulating Bitcoin, public companies are accumulating Bitcoin. One specific company, MicroStrategy. So I actually never deleted the old screenshots and pictures. So this was probably from Bitblockboom about 2 years ago, where MicroStrategy had 91,000 Bitcoin and Tesla had 43,000 Bitcoin. Square was in third place with 8,000. And then the last presentation that I did, which was like 6 months ago, feels like yesterday, right here in Texas, a different city. It was in Austin. You can see that MicroStrategy has gone up from 91,000 to 152,000. Tesla, for some crazy reason, sold 30,000 Bitcoin. In hindsight, that's a smart move, clearly. And Square has changed its name to Block, and they have not increased their Bitcoin position at all. And here we are today. MicroStrategy is now up to 214,000 Bitcoin. By the way, shout out to NVK. I thought I saw him standing in the back earlier for having this publicly available website. Thanks for doing the work over at CoinKite. Tesla, I'm sure, regrets their decision very much. Marathon is holding on to some of the Bitcoin that they're mining, which is very interesting because the other miners aren't doing that. Block still hasn't added any Bitcoin, and neither has Tesla. But I think a lot of that is going to change. So I'm expecting a lot more public companies to accumulate Bitcoin. We also have private companies. They're not accumulating Bitcoin anymore. Block One basically scammed a bunch of people by selling them EOS tokens and accumulating 160,000 Bitcoin that they are still sitting on. For the last 8 years, I've been saying that Mt. Gox will eventually sell that Bitcoin and pay out the investors, but not the actual investors. They're going to pay out their grandkids. They're waiting as long as they can. That seems to always be held up. So private companies aren't as eager to jump on board. And of course, El Salvador remains still the only country to adopt Bitcoin. This was, once again, the last slide. El Salvador had 2,000 Bitcoin. And today, El Salvador has upped their amount up to 5,000 Bitcoin. The United States is up there now, but all of that was, of course, stolen from other people. I'm not sure where China got theirs, probably in the same way, and UK and Germany. This was not Bitcoin that was purchased on the open market. This was Bitcoin that, unfortunately, wasn't properly secured in cold storage and hence was confiscatable, unlike everyone here who has their Bitcoin in an unconfiscatable form. All right. And so these are some of the drivers, because there's just not going to be enough Bitcoin to go around. Another image I really liked, I talked about this a lot all throughout last year in the bear market, and that's the accumulation of one Bitcoin. When Bitcoin was between 20,000 and like 30, 40,000, I kept saying, any middle class person can afford one Bitcoin. If you can afford your house, you can afford one Bitcoin. Today, that's becoming less easy, less affordable. But 1 million people were able to accumulate at least one Bitcoin. So I think that's a nice round number. I really like that round number. And let's see if we can accumulate more. But you can see that at the top is starting to round off. And there was a chance for all these people. If you can accumulate one Bitcoin, you can accumulate two Bitcoin back when it was 20, 15, 20,000. Now it's going to be a little bit harder. But this is wallets with one Bitcoin. And you know these wallets are hodling. They're not going to be selling that one Bitcoin anytime soon. They're waiting till that Bitcoin gets to $1 million before some of these people start going to that Bitcoin. Another metric is Lightning capacity, the amount of Bitcoin that is permanently locked up in the Lightning Network. Now, with the recent price rise, some Bitcoin exited the Lightning Network and moved on chain. The value in dollars on the Lightning Network has gone up, even though the amount of Bitcoin on the Lightning Network actually went down. So this is another chart that we would really like to turn around. The fees were really high for some strange reason last week. Even I started using Lightning, and you guys know I'm not a. Those of you that know me well know that I'm an on-chain person, and but it's coming pretty soon. The fees will go up high enough that everyone's going to start using Lightning, and once Bitcoin enters the Lightning Network, it mostly stays there. Right now, because of the quick price rise, it actually went down. And here's one more I am really optimistic about, and that is the liquid sidechain. I know a lot of people demonize the liquid sidechain. I have been a fan of this concept for a long, long time. And once Bitcoin enters the liquid sidechain and people start using liquid Bitcoin instead of Bitcoin for additional privacy, some scaling opportunities, and getting these ridiculous ordinals and other crap off of Bitcoin and moving them onto something like the liquid sidechain, you will see more accumulation of Bitcoin locked up in the liquid sidechain. And once again, that is Bitcoin that is exiting the supply and demand, and hence creating more pressure on the supply side of Bitcoin available for other people to purchase. So I believe Parker mentioned the HODL waves. I'm going to get a little bit closer. I wanted to describe these things. I hope people can see these charts pretty big on the screen. And so the HODL wave was interesting. So now we're going to get into some of these on-chain metrics and some of the other charts, and why I feel the bull market is only getting started versus potentially ending. And there could always be an argument made that the bull market is about to end and we're going to go down. So the HODL wave shows you how long do people hold on to their Bitcoin before it moves, and whether additional Bitcoin is being accumulated and long-term hodlers are parting with their Bitcoin. So you can see right there that in the blue square, you can see how a lot more people are picking up new Bitcoin shorter term, and the part that's losing the most are people that held their Bitcoin between 7 and 10 years. So those that have been holding for more than 10 years are continuing to hold. People that were not there for the first cycle, these are the people that are starting to sell a little bit. But to me, the interesting thing is what I highlighted in green is that once that yellow part starts to turn, that's kind of like the middle part of the bull cycle. And if you see the next wave start to turn, but it hasn't started yet. If you look at the two green circles, if you go right above the circle in the middle of the chart, you will see that that green wave starts to go up, but that hasn't started yet. So I think there is still definitely room based on this chart for more upside. Here's a similar chart. This is a realized cap of the HODL wave. So I do have explanations here. This is also being live streamed. So you can always check this presentation later and read a little bit of detail. I only have 10 minutes left, so I'm not getting into the details of a lot of these charts and how they're made, but I did my best in describing it there. Also, shout out to Look Into Bitcoin, where I pulled these charts from. I have an excellent website for some of the more basic on-chain analysis charts. So here's another example of this is using realized cap, and realized cap is explained right there for you. And it's a very, very similar picture where I'm waiting for those little circles in red. That part of the wave has not even turned yet. So if you compare it to the prior two cycles, I believe that there's definitely a lot more room to go up from here just based on this chart. So here's one more. This is the long-term hodler supply. You can definitely see that the longer-term hodlers, and in this case is defined as 155 days, So those that are holding on to their Bitcoin for over half a year. So you can see that this part starts to dip, and it starts to dip near the tops. It has not yet turned. It has not yet found the bottom. So those that have Bitcoin for over 155 days have started to part with that Bitcoin, and it's moving around. However, once again, there is still some room here. I didn't like this chart starting to go down this early. It certainly doesn't look like it can continue in this fashion for another year. But either way, should be about 3 to 6 months of time left before this chart bottoms out. So one more chart, the R hodl ratio. Once again, I have the descriptions up there. The indicator uses a ratio of realized value of that hodl wave we saw earlier. And in this case, you can see how historically in the first 3 cycles, this ratio did get into that red zone. It didn't do that in the last cycle. The last cycle was really tricky. I personally got a little fooled on that last cycle, and so did a lot of other analysts. Um, for me, it was for very different reasons. I don't like to be in groupthink. For me, it was more technical analysis because for me, when you break a prior all-time high, the way we did in October, November of 2021, markets tend to go higher and significantly higher. It was so rare that it did what it did. For the more on-chain analysts, it was charts like this that had them very, very bullish, still even in the latter part of 2021, and it didn't work out. Could we have topped right here? It's possible, but I do believe this ratio has more room to grow on the bullish side. Very, very similar chart. This is the MVRV Z-score. Again, the math could be a little complicated. I'll try to explain it for you. I should probably read it because it's better than me trying to explain it. It's a Bitcoin chart that uses blockchain analytics to identify periods where Bitcoin is extremely over or under valued relative to its fair value. So, but how do you determine fair value? We determine fair value based on what price people bought it at and people sell it at. The little blue line under the price is the realized cap. That's like the average price where people are buying Bitcoin. The price chart is not actually a price chart, it's a market cap chart, but it's similar. So the black line is a market cap. And then we have that Z score, which is a ratio. Also at the bottom, it's explained how analysts use these charts. And once again, you can see that there's plenty of room to grow in that particular ratio. One more chart, advanced NVT. And the NVT signal was very, very popular like 4 or 5 years ago. A lot of people thought, even the analysts that put it together, thought that it wasn't as useful anymore. So this is a slight variation on that NVT. And once again, you see that blue line, it's more of a standard deviation. Anytime it hits the top of the band, which is the red envelope that surrounds it, the price is a little overheated. Anytime it hits the bottom green lines of the envelope around the blue oscillator, tends to be a little bit more room to grow for a bounce. I know the overall consolidation is a little high, but once again, we have alleviated some of the overbought conditions from a few months ago, and there's definitely room for growth there. This is miner revenue. So the part in orange is miner revenue versus the price of Bitcoin in black. Now, this miner revenue is indicated in the number of Bitcoins miners are mining per day. So you can see that in 2011 and 2012, miners were accumulating like 10,000 Bitcoin a day, right? Well, 50 Bitcoin per block. In 1 hour, you get 300 Bitcoin an hour. So you multiply 300 by 24, and you end up with up to 10,000 Bitcoin per day. Today, they're getting approximately 1,000 Bitcoin per day. And in a week, it's going to be 500 Bitcoin a day. But how much is that Bitcoin actually worth? So this is a similar chart. This is miner profitability. This is where you take that Bitcoin per day and you multiply it by the value of that Bitcoin. For some reason, TradingView stopped updating this chart like 2 months ago. So you see that we should be right on that halving line. And today, it's right around that orange line. So technically speaking, miners were making just as much money mining Bitcoin in 2017 as they are today. That is actually kind of crazy. You would think that miners would be a lot more profitable today than at the peak of 2017, but they're not. So I think this chart has a lot of room to grow. And they're about to get hit with the halving. And the hash rate keeps growing like crazy. So something has to give here. So I do think a lot of miners are going to go bankrupt after this halving, but at the same time, as you know, uh, I guess Murphy's law, like when a bunch of miners finally go out of business, the price of Bitcoin is going to skyrocket because this chart is definitely due for one more leg up. And let's see which miners are able to stick around that long. All right, 3 minutes to go. Okay, coin days destroyed. This is one of those charts that's actually a little bit concerning. Coin days destroyed is people willing to take their Bitcoin out of cold storage after they've been there for a little while and willing to trade those Bitcoin in for fiat or Lambos or whatever people want to buy. So this chart is one of those charts that's concerning. Hopefully this will alleviate. Hopefully some of the older hodlers have finally waded through this crazy bear market. They had to upgrade their kitchen, or they had to send off their kids to college finally, and now they're gonna start a new wave of hodling. So very similar chart, only as supply adjusted. It's a little bit cleaner actually. I don't know why I had them both, but kind of just put them both together. Almost an identical chart, just the scales are different. So we're just gonna go on. I'm not a big fan of like the stock to flow stuff, but I had to throw it in here. So these are two charts created by Plan B. One of them is this is the price versus the 200-week moving average, which is the long-term scale. This chart has been pretty consistent. And I remember these indicators back from my Wall Street days, like when the price is above or below the 200-week moving average on an asset, that it's an indication of an overbought condition. And in the last cycle, we didn't get as high as we did in the prior cycles versus its average. And right now, we still have plenty of room to go up for that. His updated stock to flow, and it was calling for way higher prices earlier. Everyone's familiar with this. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I'll just read the last part here. The stock to flow chart, it had predicted that by the end of 2022, the price should have been 78. We hit 78 recently. By the end of 23, stock to flow had us at 82,000. So we're close. But at the end of this year, stock to flow has us at 300,000. I think that's super optimistic. I think it's possible, but my targets are lower. All right, last set of charts before I'm out of time. Reverse risk. This is probably one of my favorite charts. Not going to get into the details, but once again, you see a very, very clear pattern of where Bitcoin accumulates and starts a bull run whenever this oscillator is in the green zone, and it tends to top out when it gets into that red zone. We topped out in that middle white part in the last cycle, and most analysts and traders agree that the last cycle ended a bit prematurely, both in time and price. And this time we're just entering that white zone now. And a couple of charts that show the potential of where the top can go. This is a terminal price. I'm not going to get into the formula terminal price did a good job identifying a top in every bull cycle. And you can see that it's currently sitting at about 110, 120,000. And as time goes on, this should rise. So that's a really nice chart. One more chart, very similar, Delta top. Again, different math formula, but did a decent job identifying all prior tops. Also has us at about 120, 130 today. And in 6 months, it should have us significantly higher than that. This is one of Willie Wu's charts, top cap. This is one of those charts that had him looking for a $300,000 price of Bitcoin at the end of the last cycle. And this one is way up there. Let's see. Maybe it'll hit it this time now that people have stopped looking at it. I got 2 charts left. The cycle master chart, again, another chart with multiple waves trying to identify tops and bottoms. Once again, another on-chain-ish chart that is showing there's plenty of room to the upside to at least 120, 130. And this should be my final chart. I ignored this indicator back in April of last year. It has been right all 4 times, identifying the top. Yes, we broke that top at the end of November, only for a little bit. This is the pi cycle top that involves 2 weird moving averages. Once again, if you rewatch this, you can, or you can find this presentation online, by the way. If you see the word Prezi there in the corner, that's the software. All you have to do is Google Prezi and my name, and all my slides are publicly available to any presentation I've ever done, because all I do is put pictures and then I talk about them. So I don't care if anyone gets the slides. There's also an oscillator there that tends to identify the bottoms because this indicator only tries to pick out the tops. And we are not even close to those 2 moving averages crossing again. But when they do cross, I will be paying attention. All right, so that is it for the charts. And once again, I'm going to back out into the projections of all prior cycles for the next 4 years, starting next week. So this is another cool chart to keep an eye on. They do tend to bottom and top around the same time. All right, thank you so much. My name is Tom Vays. I will have an event in Las Vegas called Unconfiscatable coming up in September. Only about 200, 250 people, poker tournament, and a lot of fun. So come and join us in Las Vegas. Just Google Unconfiscatable. Financial Summit is an event I do for traders, analysts. It's coming up in the Maldives in about 11 months. And understanding Bitcoin has been retired, but I've been talking to Adam Back and Giacomo Zucco about bringing it back in a very special location. So more info on that probably in about 3 to 4 months. All right, thank you so much, guys. I don't know if I have time for questions. I kind of ran into the Q&A time.